Hello, Master Duel Central. How's it going, guys? So it's been a while since the last tier list, and honestly, that last tier list is so out of date. It's actually ridiculous. The reason it took me so long to make another one is because I wanted to wait at least for the new cards to come out to see what we would get, because I didn't want to be as wrong as I was last time. But you guys still seem to really enjoy it. These videos are great for driving discussion, of course. So I always want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Let me know where you think I'm wrong or where you think a deck should be, possibly. So let's get into it, guys. For starters, I think, like, as you can see here, we have Goated with the sauce with the penguins. You can't really top that, but we do have the top tier, which in my opinion right now is dedicated to a single archetype, which is Runic. I think Runic as a deck is just absolutely absurd. Obviously, just the way that it plays kind of stops you from playing. A lot of people played with a bunch of floodgates, and they can run so many different ones that you kind of have to pray to draw into your like Harpy's Feather Duster to get rid of them, but they can just protect their stuff from Harpy's Feather Duster with Hugin, so it's kind of bullshit. Honestly, it's kind of stupid. They just get to keep playing. You basically have to pop the field spell 3 times to get to play or draw into your Cosmic Cyclone. I don't know. I still think Runic right now is just in a tier of its own, honestly, above and beyond everything else in the game at the current moment. And I like starting with the very top stuff just so we can kind of go from there. And here we have Mr. Sun Avalon Dry Ass. And I think that's a good way to start the list here. Sun Avalons, now that we have Therions, are going to be absolutely insane. They were already crazy, like an incredible combo deck, but with the plays they have using the Therion stuff, they can finally protect themselves from Nibiru, which makes them absolutely incredible. Just another top tier combo deck that doesn't care about Nibiru. And honestly, like, I think this might be the best combo deck, arguably. There is one other combo deck that I would put up here right now, and yo, shout out Circular, man. Shout out Circular. I actually think Mathmex, and tell me if you think I'm coping in the comments here, but genuinely, I think Mathmex and Sun Avalons are going to be the best combo decks in the format. Circular alone just makes Mathmex so stupid. Just they get such easy setup for their trap card, and you know, they get the Omni Negate, bounce, hand loop stuff. Like, they get so much. They can play under Max C too. Like, they'll do like 2 summons under Max C to set up like some insane interruption. Absolutely incredible deck, honestly. Cannot sleep on Mathmech. And when they go full combo, you know that shit goes crazy. And it's also pretty cheap, actually. I highly recommend you guys build Mathmech if you want a good, like, super competitive deck that doesn't cost too much. I think there's like 6 URs in this deck that are like required, not counting staples. Dinos. Now, Dinos here, by the way, if you want to see it this way, this is like S, this is S minus, this is A, and this is like B tier. I genuinely think Dinos are just like not in a good place right now. The hands, man, the hands are so bad sometimes. Like, the consistency is so low. When you get a good hand, it's the best deck in the world. And when you get a bad hand, it's like just trash. And honestly, it's almost 50-50 for if you're going to get a good hand or not. I'd prefer going second at the moment, because going first just feels so, like, it just feels so bad when you get a bad hand. It's just terrible. At least going second, you get that extra card, and they do have good tools going second. It's definitely one of those decks that can be really good going both first or second, but I don't know. I'm just not vibing with Dinos at the moment. And like, I love Dinos, but I don't think they're doing very good in the game at the moment. So you got to be a dedicated Dino player, definitely, like I am, to get to Diamond. And even then, it's an uphill battle for sure. Let's go for Sword Soul. This is a deck that I heavily underestimated last tier list. Now, I'm not going to put it all the way up here, but genuinely, I do think Sword Soul is like a high A tier right now. Sword Soul, especially now that you can play, like, I've seen some people run it with some Runic stuff, and that's crazy. I don't think you really need to do that, though. I think Sword Soul, what they have going for them is just this insane level of consistency, and it does feel like they can play through a lot of more popular hand traps. Like they don't care about Ash, really, for the most part, and a lot of things like that. And Protoss is a lot of free wins, oftentimes. They're really, really good. I kind of slept on them last tier list. Wanted to correct that a little bit here. Adamanticators, I just want to go for the decks I kind of underestimated last tier list. I think Adamanticators, if it wasn't for the release of these, would probably be up here. But now that we have these 2 incredible combo decks right now, I don't think they're really like tier 1.5, but I genuinely think Adamanticators are like sitting around the top of tier 2 right now. One block dragon doesn't really do enough. They were just absolutely dominating last format. Probably the best combo deck, in my opinion, of the last format. And they can place through like so many interruptions. They literally couldn't care less about Nibiru. It's just an insane deck, honestly. And their grind game is just disgusting. Even with 1 block dragon, they'll be just fine. Absolutely broken deck. Next up, we have Heroes. Now, Heroes, to be honest, I think heroes are pretty much, as always, just rogue tier. Really good going second deck. However, they're also like a very fragile deck, I feel. And even though sometimes they're great at going second, sometimes like you see heroes and you just feel this great relief like, oh, they can't do anything. It's definitely like a really uphill battle to get to Diamond with them, or Diamond 1 especially. This one here, Sky Striker, is really good, but maybe not as good as people say it is. It's kind of sitting like at the top of B tier. And the thing about Sky Strikers, even though they're really good, they're still a going second deck in a best of one format, which basically means it's another one of those draw the out dot deck. It's definitely better than Dinos, but I don't think it's quite on this level here. Still, the new support makes it absolutely insane, and I might be tripping on this one. It might actually be better than I think. Next up, we have Zombie Pile. Now, Zombie Pile, I was kind of vibing with because it had a really good counter to Runic. You could run it with Shiranui, so I was really fucking with it, and it did help me get to Diamond last season, but honestly, like, that's pretty much all it has going for it. There's a shit ton of variety in the game. So many really solid decks that Zombie kind of struggles against. So I think this is a pretty fair spot for it. And while we're at it, I'm also going to put Eldritch. Now, I do think right now the Zombie Pile is better than Eldritch. There's just better trap decks in the format right now. Eldritch with one Conquistador looks kind of funny. If you want to play a Floodgate deck, there's the best deck in the game right here that you can play. So Eldritch just kind of looking goofy right now, not doing too great. Let's go for Rockets. Now, Rockets were absolutely insane, and I kind of underestimated them because of Alba releasing. I was kind of like, oh no, they're trash because of Alba, which was a pretty whack take to have. Like, they can set up an IP Masquerena to just bounce the Albaz so that they don't get Alba'd instantly. So honestly, I feel like I kind of underestimated this deck. I still think it's not like tier 1 or anything like that anymore. It's definitely not as good as Sun Avalon or Mathmech, and honestly, I don't even think it's as good as Sword Soul, just because even though its combos are better than Sword Souls for the most part, I think it's less consistent than Sword Soul. It's not really, like, it's not a bricky deck, but like it's not the most consistent either. A lot of people will say, what, you can't brick with this deck, and I used to believe that, but after playing for a while, you absolutely can brick with this deck. And I don't just mean with my like goofy 60 card pile. It's still really powerful though, because it can play through multiple interruptions. It's got insane combos. It's like it sets up like a pretty unbreakable board sometimes, so I wouldn't like sleep on it or anything, but I do think like it's more like high tier A instead of like, you know, in the S tiers. For the next deck we have here, I'm going to put Numerons. I think they're just under Sky Striker. Just another really good going second deck, but it is a going second deck, which just means a lot of the time you'll just lose games because you didn't draw the kind of out you needed for the kind of deck you're playing against. It's still a really solid deck though, and I definitely think you can absolutely get to Diamond 1 playing Numerons. Umi Control, honestly right now, to me, like, I'm almost like don't even want to put it in Rogue. I'm going to put it at the very bottom of Rogue because it's still like solid and it's going to win you games, and it's undoubtedly possible that you'll get lucky and get a super easy climb to Diamond. But this is like the most gamble-y type of deck ever, because the best deck in the format, Runic, literally doesn't care about Umi Control whatsoever. A lot of decks can play around it. It's still really good, and it's also just the fact that this deck from the jump is like kind of a luck-based deck because it's not the most consistent deck ever. All your like combos are 2-card combos, and it's kind of similar to Dinos, and the lock that they put on the game doesn't even apply to every matchup. And next up, we have Scarecrows. Now, I think Scarecrows is still really solid. I'm speaking more so about the adventure version, but even like the Tri-Brigade version is just absolutely incredible. I don't think it's like, you know, it's definitely not up here, but it's definitely a really good deck. I would say it's probably just, it's like over Dinos for sure. It's definitely better than Dinos. I'll give it that for sure. I don't know if it's even like better than Numeron though. I think it's probably like under Numerons, right here between Dinos and Numerons for now. It's a really, really solid deck, and you know, its combos are good. The kind of boards it sets up is good. It can go second very well and just OTK like nothing. Don't worry, I still think it's a really, really solid deck. I think every deck in here can absolutely make it to Diamond. Scarecrows are still in a pretty good place, but definitely not like a top tier deck. We have Salads. Now, Salads, okay, never mind. Dino might not actually be at the bottom of tier 3. I think Salads is probably that. For one, they're quite consistent. Like, they're insanely consistent. The boards they set up are nothing too amazing. A lot of them just end up going for freaking like Heat Soul control, which is like good. It's good, but I don't know. I don't get too impressed by Salamangreat in general. But yeah, it's still really solid, and the ability to set up Baguska under like Heat Soul is pretty crazy, right? So they're still a good deck. They're not bad or anything. It's just I don't think they're doing great. Okay, next one here. I love this one. Labyrinth. Now, Labyrinth, man, Labyrinth is looking crazy. But until we get more Labyrinth support, I can't really put them up here. I still think it's an insanely solid deck, though. I would probably put them like right either under or like around equal power level with Sky Strikers, right? Like they're really, really solid. You know, they're super explosive. Their plays are awesome, but they're also like pretty susceptible to just removal. Like you'll go Heartbeast Feather Duster and you'll pretty much just win the game. I know some people say that's not true and they have a lot of recursion, which they do, but I think they're just a bit too slow at the moment, like with their recursion, because you can easily just OTK if you have like a Heartbeast Feather Duster or something. Now, to be fair, having the out is cool and all, but oftentimes people won't have the out and you'll be building a lot of advantage very, very quickly. Their chain links get huge and they just like, they generate this insane amount of advantage once they just pop a single monster with a trap card or remove one with Compulse or something like that. So just for the amount of advantage they generate, I definitely think Labyrinth is in a really good place. We have Drytron. Now, Drytron I did sleep on for quite a few formats. I might want to put it like above Dinos at least. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it right above Dinos. Like, honestly, their combos are still really, really impressive. Ben 10 is still super stupid. It still feels like they set up some pretty formidable boards going first. It's just that going second, they're extremely fragile. They're kind of like the opposite of Dinos in that sense. And they're quite consistent too. Like, they're pretty damn consistent. They're hard to interrupt as well. So, I don't know. I think this is a pretty good spot for it. Nordic? So, I never really put these guys on a tier list, but man, Nordic, you know, they're goofy. They're goofy. You probably don't see them very often, but we have like a dedicated Nordic player in my Discord. And honestly, like, I feel like they're better than heroes. Like, I think they're probably like the top of Rogue. Like, they're actually quite good. They're weird. Like, you play them with Adventure, and you can set up this trap that negates everything on the field. So if you get lucky, you can pretty much, like, negate, like, 5 cards at once. All their setups are pretty much, like, off the link 1. So a lot of, like, it's pretty consistent, and it's pretty, like, linear. But it's really cool. So, I don't know. I think it's, like, at the top of Rogue. I think you shouldn't sleep on Nordics. You might lose some games to Nordic and be like, oh, my God, how did I lose that? Despia. I don't think Despia's top tier anymore, honestly. I don't think the Aluberta 2 did much of anything. You can just run a kit and stuff. I just don't think they're like quite top tier anymore. It feels like their interruptions is not going to be enough in the current format with the Therions going around, a lot of combo decks going around that, like, sure, they have good interruption, but I don't feel like their interruption is quite good enough. Now, the double Masquerade is not something you can sleep on, but I still, honestly, I feel like it might be just over like Dragon Link. Don't think Despia is S tier anymore. It's still really, really solid, of course, and you're still absolutely going to be able to get to the top with Despia. But I actually think there's a better fusion deck going around right now. Predaplants. Now, Predaplants with the Therion stuff can set up an easy Omni Negate, so they're pretty much safe from Nibiru. They can set up a ton of monsters. Like, they have so much more gas than branded Despia, so much more gas. And I think just that ability to just spam a bunch of fusion monsters, they can search super polymerization. They've just got a lot of really, really, really good tools. They do have the downside of being slightly, I would say, less consistent than branded Despia, but that's only in the sense that you won't always get your branded fusion, because you almost always have some plays. It's just that you won't always have like the branded fusion plays because you're not running 3 Aluber for the most part, although you can run the 60 pal, but I haven't really tested that out, so I don't know what to tell you for that. But I definitely think Predaplant is going to be really, really good. Probably not top tier, but definitely at least better than Despia. I feel like this is a pretty good spot to put it. Next up, we have Flounderies. Now, Flounderies is still almost top tier, bruh. It's almost top tier. Honestly, I'm like mixed on putting it either over or under Sword Soul. It's less consistent than Sword Soul, but honestly, its interruption is so much better, and they still almost always get to what they want to do. They're also like worse than Sword Soul at going second, but still pretty good at it because they can play Dimension Shifter. I'm going to put them, this is a tough one, I'm going to put them over Sword Soul, but honestly, I'm very mixed on this. I think they're both pretty even, honestly, in the current meta. No doubt, you play Flounderies, shut your brain off, and just, like, climb ladder. Like, it's just goofy. I can't stand this fucking deck. I hope it leaves soon. Next up, sadly, but also happily, the best Dino deck in the format, Dino Morphia. And Dino Morphia it's insane right now. It's probably, I'm kind of mixed, like similar to Flounderies, I'm kind of mixed on where to put it, but it's definitely tier 2 at least. Like, it plays under Maxi super well. It sets up insane interruptions. It's got like a super powerful skill drain. It can shuffle your entire board away. It's got an out to Rongo, which not a lot of decks can say. Yeah, I feel like this is a decent spot for it, right under Sword Soul. It's an insane deck. It's absolutely incredible, but it's not quite, like, it's pretty interruptible sometimes. Like, sometimes I don't get super impressed by them. It feels like I can interrupt their stuff pretty well. I feel like this is a fair spot for it. Still a pretty easy climb to Diamond in my opinion. I'm just gonna say right now, Blue Eyes is like barely playable right now, but you do have Draglubion, like OTK, I mean. It's cool. It's cool. Next, I'm gonna go for the Evil Twins. Now, Evil Twins, honestly, kind of similar to Salamangreat. I think they're better than Salamangreat though, because they do a better job of going second than Salamangreat in my opinion. They're in a pretty similar spot of just being like this link spam deck that is kind of unremarkable. It's just okay. It's not rogue. It's still good, but it's just okay. I don't know. I genuinely think it's like worse than Dinos, to be honest. Let's go for Cyber Dragons. Now, Cyber Dragons got their support with the Therions. Therions do help Cyber Dragon tremendously. However, it's still Cyber Dragons, and Cyber Dragons is even more bricky than Dinos. So actually, this might be the rogue deck that goes over Nordic, arguably, honestly, because they're not even as consistent as Nordic. But yeah, I'm gonna put Cyber Dragons at the top of rogue. It got a lot better. And, you know, it's a good, like, going second strategy. It's got good interruptions, too, if you want to go first with it. Although I don't recommend going first with Cyber Dragon because it's already bricky as is. Might want to get that extra draw. But, yeah, Cyber Dragon, it's all right. It's not great, honestly. It's just kind of there. Next up, we're going to go for the Phantom Knights, which I think Phantom Knights are, like, better than Dinos, worse than Drytron. Like, you know, they're still like a solid deck. I think there's just better options out there if you want to play like a good combo deck. But they're still good, definitely. Like, I think this is a super fair spot for it. Not much else to say on that. Tri-Brigade is Tri-Brigade. Honestly, like, it's still just great. Even though, like, and I'm mostly thinking of, like, Tri-Brigade with the Scarecrows here. Even though they have these really explosive plays and the Scarecrow engine does help them with going second and stuff like that, I just think, like, their style of removal is not impactful enough for the current format. Their matchup against Runic is pretty trash too. Like, sure, you can banish the fountain, but you put so much into banishing that fountain, and then you're just kind of like a sitting duck, honestly. It's, I don't know. I don't think it's actually as good as I thought anymore. It's still like super solid diamond tier deck. Absolutely, you'll get to diamond rank with it. No problem. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's top of tier 2 or that high anymore, to be honest. And next we have Pendulums. I'm going to put all of Pendulums together, including Endymion. The thing about Pendulum, though, is they lost like their ability to do like 2 or 3 times the same effect as Electromite by using that fusion monster that I forget the name of. By losing that, they don't get this free FTK that they had access to, and they also, like, they just lose the ability to reuse Electromite, which is their best card. So honestly, I think like they're going to be a lot less impressive from now on because of that. So I'm just going to put them here. They're still a good deck, but like, I don't know. I just don't think they're going to be nearly as impressive. Thunder Dragons. Thunder Dragons were pretty cool as like a tech option because of Runic. And that's still the case, but I'm still kind of unimpressed with Thunder Dragons. It feels like most decks other than Runic deal with Thunder Dragons really easily. And even Runic doesn't really care that much about Thunder Dragons. So, honestly, like, I think it's under Dinos. Maybe even, like, yeah, honestly, it's not very good. Like, I'm going to put it, like, under Salads. I just don't think it's that good right now. I think it's just kind of okay. It seems I forgot to put Ignister on the list. I think it's, like, top of tier 3, right above Labyrinth. Anyway. But yeah, that's going to be the list. Let me know if you guys think this is a crazy list. I know I have a lot of decks over in tier A and not a lot of decks in top tier. I think it's still a very varied format. And honestly, most of the decks here, like, you could probably merge them with like tier 1.5 if you wanted to. They're pretty much like pseudo top tier up here. And everything else is, you know, it's still competitive. And Rogue is just kind of like a uphill battle, but you know, you can do it. That's my list. Let me know what you think is missing on the list or what you think is completely off base. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I love the support. I appreciate it. And we're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers before summer, and I think we can do it. Anyway, huge shout out to my UCT tier members. That would be Raptor Rapture, Bongerman for 20, Dad Dude Joey, Hudamami, as well as Right Toast and Brett Webster. Peace.